Uncharted 2 is without a doubt one of my favorite games of all time. It has amazing visuals and story and gameplay, and it's just altogether a complete package. Needless to say, I was very excited to see what the next game would bring. And, well...
So, yeah. It's hard to talk and review Uncharted 3 because just judging the game on its own merit, it's got great visuals, you know, mind-blowing locations. It's got the same great action the series is known for. It's got a good story. It improves on the first two games. It does a lot of things right. But the story and the characters and a bunch of little small things kind of all piled together to bring the game down as a whole. So, if you want to straight up just review, 9 out of 10, it's really good, if you've never picked one up, just go pick it out. Great game, great multiplayer, good co-op, all that's great. But, as a fan of the series, and, this being my favorite PlayStation series, I was really, upset and let down because there's a lot of problems that aren't going to affect most people, but there's a lot of plot holes, there's a lot of things that kind of, fans have expected more from Naughty Dog. So, that's why this isn't going to be a review, but it's going to be the top 10 reasons I was disappointed by Uncharted 3. Again, I'm not complaining, these are not why it's bad, it's a great game. These are just 10 little problems that kind of pull together and just hurt the product as a whole.
Number 10. Who was Charlie Cutter? Early on in the game, you're introduced to a new character called Cutter, who is seen working with Marlo and Talbot. It's later revealed that he went undercover for Drake to discover some of their secrets. Now, that's all well and good, but beyond that, we really don't get a good sense of who Charlie is as a character. You work with him for a few missions, but then he's quickly swept to the side and never heard of again. Now, some of you may be wondering why I'm complaining about something so trivial like this, but look at characters like Eddie, Raja, and Chloe. We instantly got a sense of who they were and how they related to Drake. We knew Eddie and Drake did some less than reputable things, and we knew Chloe is a person who always tries to look out for herself first and foremost. Compare this to Charlie, and we know very little about him. We know he's got some kind of history knowledge, but we don't know how he met Drake or even how long they've been working together. All we know is he's the wacky British guy. And for a series with such deep, fully fleshed out characters, to have a guy who's just a simple stereotype is kind of disappointing. Number 9. What's with ignoring the middle chapter?
So, yeah, I fully admit this one's just kind of a personal pet peeve and kind of an annoyance thing, so I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. But, yeah, much in the same way, The Dark Knight Rises ties a lot more into the first one, and same with Uncharted. There's a very lot of similar themes with Sir Francis Drake and about Drake's history and who Drake is and all those things. And, again, it's not to say I hate this, it's a little weird, especially considering in both Batman and Uncharted, the second one is the best and it's the standout one and it's the greatest of the franchise. It feels a little weird that they're not following it up, or they're not, again, they acknowledge things, like they do admit the second one happened in both franchises, but it has more in line with the first. Again, not a big nitpick, it's just kind of a small annoyance, but still, just something weird that kind of still distracts me to this day.
Number 8. How did Charlie sneak into Marlo's secret society? Now, the bad guy for this game is a woman named Marlo, who is said to be working for a secret ancient society that has unlimited money and resources. Yet somehow a soccer hooligan like Charlie just walked in and started working with Talbot, Marlo's right-hand man. In fact, there's later a scene where Marlo is given a fake ring by Talbot, and she knows exactly it was Charlie who fooled them.
We've been duped.
Cutter.
Uh-huh.
Clearly, she knows he was a red flag and shouldn't have been trusted, and yet she just turns a blind eye and let him get right up in the middle of their business. I know ultimately this doesn't really amount to much in the grand scheme of things, but still, it's kind of a large plot hole I couldn't stop thinking about. Number 7. How did Talbot disappear? At one point in the game, Drake and the gang head to Syria to look for clues, and while the rest of them are inspecting a wall, Charlie wanders off and is darted by Talbot, who forces Charlie to give him all their clues. But before Talbot can escape, Drake spots him and fires at him while he turns around a corner, only for him to disappear. Now I know some of you may be saying, well, maybe they were darted, since we later find out Talbot's darts have hallucinogenic properties. To that I would like to point out to the scene where Drake himself is darted later on in the game. He feels the dart hit his neck and has enough time to realize he's been drugged. Going back to the original scene, none of the characters flinch or move or anything. Talbot simply disappears. This is rather upsetting, especially considering how this game tried to be more grounded and realistic. Apparently, grounded realism includes magic. Somehow. Number 6. What is Drake's real name? Halfway through the game, Drake is drugged and wakes up in a cafe with Talbot and Marlo, where they discuss various plus points, but the biggest one of these is that she reveals his last name is not actually Drake, but he simply grew up at Sir Francis Drake's home for boys. Then they immediately sweep it under the rug and never address it again.
In fact, I suspect I know you better than anyone, Mr. Drake. Of course, that's not your real name, is it? But we won't dwell on that.
Now, I'm well aware the point of this game is to prove that he may not be a true Drake, but he's earned the title through his actions, and that's all well and good. But me personally, I would have liked to know what his true name was, just for a sense of finality and closure. Number 5. What is going on in the CoOp Missions? For a lot of people, one of the biggest additions to Uncharted 2 was the new multiplayer mode, and while I enjoyed the competitive multiplayer well enough, I was a huge fan of the co-op mode, but unfortunately most of the missions were simple steal the idol or blow up the tower. So when I heard it would not only be returning in Uncharted 3, but it would have its own exclusive story just for co-op, I got really excited. However, what I wasn't expecting was how weird the story truly was. To the best of my knowledge, Lazarevich from the second game is after a two-headed statue that is one of a kind. So Drake goes around the world looking for clues, only to meet up with Lazarevich, Eddie Raja, and Flint at the end of the game, all working together and alive, without any explanation given. The final mission is Drake defeating them, without ever explaining what the hell is going on. Now, I wouldn't have a problem with this if it was just a bunch of random missions, like the last game, but because they took the time to write a story just for co-op, without explaining things like this, it kinda just cheapens the experience. Number 4. What were the characters after? Now, this Uncharted tried to do something different compared to the other two by having a more grounded, realistic game that didn't involve magic, where things could be explained in logical ways. For example, later on in the game, you'll find out that the people of Aram couldn't perform magic, but were actually hallucinating from a steel drum in the drinking water. Which is all well and good, but we never actually find out why Marlo wants it. Again, the only thing we know is that it caused people to hallucinate, but Marlo already has tranquilizer darts that can do this to great effect, as we see with Drake and Charlie. We know Drake and Sully are there to stop her, but we never get a clear understanding of what she wants with the steel drum. Again, compare this to the other two games, and we clearly know what those villains wanted, and what it would mean if our heroes lost. At the end of the day, our motivation for stopping Marlo was simply because she was the bad guy. Number 3. What happened to Drake and Elena? The one thing that has always been the driving force for this entire series has been the relationship between Drake and Elena. Throughout the first two games, we saw their relationship grow and develop, and it had a climax at the end of the second game when they both admitted their love for each other, and it seemed like they were finally going to be together. However, at the start of the third game, not only are they not together anymore, they're not even talking to each other. Which is a great setup, but they never fully explain what happened. They often allude to a ring, but they never define in what capacity the ring meant. Were they engaged? Married? Divorced? Just separated? We never get any clear answers. We know that Elena left him because he was too reckless and wouldn't settle down, but never where they were as a couple when that happened. After so much tension and build-up from the first 2 games, the fact that such a major story point like this is swept under the rug is inexcusable. We've been waiting 3 games to see what will happen to these characters, and to hide such a huge chapter of their lives, it's just disappointing. Number 2. There was no sense of finality. Now I understand this was never built to be the last Uncharted game. We now know that may well be Uncharted 4. I was still expecting some sense of finality or closure. Unfortunately, this ending just feels like the other ones, where you got the girl, saved the world, and stopped the bad guy. Now, to show what I mean when I say finality, look at the ending of Ratchet & Clank 3. Though it's a small scene, you see all the characters he's met over the past 3 games, and you feel Ratchet has grown as a character from the first game. It wasn't an ultimate ending, but it gave the series a sense of finality, that you had accomplished something after these past 3 games. Compare this to Uncharted 3, and it kinda just ends. It feels like another chapter in Drake's life. For any other series to have a weak ending is bad enough, but for a series whose claim to fame with such strong, compelling stories, for it to have just an okay ending is kinda wrong. And the number 1 reason why I was disappointed by Uncharted 3 is...
Now look, I know it's not fair to compare games to the past ones, and each title should stand on its own. But that being said, Uncharted 3 just takes so many things from Uncharted 2.
Let's see, where do I start? Both games are about discovering a lost city and finding a magical item. Both have a magical map room that reveals the location of the city. Both have a caravan scene. Both have you meeting a wise outsider who watches over the city. Both bad guys are killed by the city itself. Both cities are destroyed in the end, and so on and so on.
Look, a lot of the problems I admit have been kind of nitpicks and just kind of plot holes. It's stuff that don't really affect the game as a whole. But in terms of the structure and how the game is laid out, it really doesn't do anything to make it stand out as its own. Now, looking back, Uncharted 1 is a little rough around the edges, but it has its own personality, and same with Uncharted 2. That was a much more darker, a grander story. It improved on everything from the first one. Uncharted 3 is more or less the same as Uncharted 2, just with a different coat of paint. And for a series that has such standout writing and gameplay and characters and really pushed the boundaries of what video games could be, to just have another game that was just more of the same is really insulting and disappointing. Because we know Naughty Dog can do better. We've seen with The Last of Us they can do better. So the fact that Uncharted 3 steals so many things from Uncharted 2 just really upset me, because I wanted it to be something new. I wanted it to be something different. I believed it was going to be that, and I was really let down. And hopefully Uncharted 4 can be something different and new. I'm not saying the game has to be darker or more bombastic. It's just I wanted something fresh, something original. And the fact that they more or less copied themselves just really hurt me as a fan, because again, as I said, I know they can do good, and I know they can do better. And I'm still hopeful that Uncharted 4 really will be something we've never seen before, and will just blow our minds. Because again, I love Uncharted 3. It's a great game. It's an Uncharted game. So you know it's going to be a great presentation. And that's at the end of the day, having a game that's only a 9 compared to something that's perfect and one of the best games ever made, I mean, that's nothing to really complain about.